Ancient farming techniques have all but been replaced by modern mechanized farming in many places around the world, but a growing sustainable agricultural movement, coupled with concerns about the impact of global warming, has led to a resurgence of interest in the processes and struggles of the original inventors and innovators of farming some 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Hi everyone, welcome to another wonderful episode on your favorite YouTube channel. It promises to be as exciting as usual, so grab a chill drink and wait till the end of the video. Don't forget to smash the like and subscribe buttons also. Let's begin. Ancient DNA has a way of uncovering complexity and seemingly simple stories of our past. Most famously, it is shown that modern humans didn't simply replace our archaic cousins as we spread across the world. We interbred with them along the way. Now, this method is adding nuance to the story of farming, long known to have originated in the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East. According to three teams who used new techniques to gain glimpses of nuclear DNA of the world's very first farmers, farming was adopted not by one group of people but by genetically distinct groups scattered across the region. There was not one early population that sowed the seeds of farming in Western Asia, but several adjacent populations that all had the good fortune to live in the zone where potential plant and animal domesticates were to be found and exploited. The research, a paper published online about science some weeks ago, and two studies posted can't pin down whether agriculture spread quickly among diverse peoples or was independently invented more than once, but the diversity of the first farmers is very surprising. These early farmers who lived pretty close to each other were completely different. Sometime around 12,000 years ago, our hunter-gatherer ancestors began trying their hand at farming. First, they grew wild varieties of crops like peas, lentils, and barley, and herded wild animals like goats and wild oxen. Centuries later, they switched to farming full-time, breeding both animals and plants, creating new varieties and breeds. Eventually, they migrated outward, spreading farming to parts of Europe and Asia. The earliest farmers lived in the Fertile Crescent, a region in the Middle East including modern-day Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Israel, Palestine, southeastern Turkey, and western Iran. And scientists had long assumed that these early farmers were a homogeneous group that traded and intermingled, swapping farming tools and tricks, as well as their genes. In other words, farming was long believed to have been started by one group of ancestral humans. But a new study suggests something different. The earliest archaeological evidence for cultivating plants and herding animals dates back 10,000 to 12,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, which arcs from the Persian Gulf to Turkey and south to Egypt. Geneticists have been trying to track whether one group of people or just their ideas spread farming early on. A single group did carry farming to Europe. DNA from ancient farmers in western Anatolia shows that they were the direct ancestors of Europe's first farmers, known as the linear pottery culture. Present-day Sardinians share the most DNA with these ancient Anatolians. But the trail of the first farmers went cold in the hot climate of the Middle East, which destroys DNA. Now, researchers are using new methods to prepare samples and extract them from the petrous bone of the ear, which is unusually rich in DNA. A group of researchers finally sequenced the complete genomes of 4 goat herders who lived in the Zagros Mountains of Iran. They include a 9,000-year-old male from Wezma Cave and 3 10,000-year-old skeletons from a site called Tepe Abdul Hossein that are among the oldest remains of farmers in the world. Tests of isotopes in the teeth of all 4 farmers confirmed they had diets rich in grains, a signature of an agricultural diet. By using a new method that looks at patterns of inheritance of chunks of DNA, Hellenthal found that the early Zagros mountain farmers have left a genetic legacy in Pakistanis, Afghans, and others, particularly in Zoroastrians in Iran. But the ancient Iranian DNA was dramatically different from that of Western Anatolian farmers. The two groups of farmers, who lived about 2,000 kilometers and 2,000 years apart, must have descended from completely different groups of hunter-gatherers who separated 46,000 to 77,000 years ago, Berger says. A similar genetic disjunction appears in a study led by one David Reich. The study analyzed ancient DNA from 44 Middle Easterners who lived 14,000 to 3,400 years ago, including Natufian hunter-gatherers in Israel, Zagros farmers, and Bronze Age pastoralists in the Eurasian steppe, and compared it with that of 2,864 living and ancient people from around the world. By sequencing 1.2 million nucleotides from across each genome, the team found that early farmers of Israel and Jordan, known as the Levant, were genetically distinct from those in the Zagros Mountains, and that both populations were distinct from the Western Anatolians who later spread their genes throughout Europe. The third study reported the same stark differences. That study analyzed the complete genome of a 10,000-year-old woman from from Ganj Dareh, a site in the Zagros Mountains with the world's oldest evidence of goat herding. The two researchers also used their data to peer even further back in time to the ancestors of the Zagros mountain farmers. They found that the Zagros people descended from a group of basal Eurasians who separated from the ancestors of all other people outside of Africa 50 to 60,000 years ago, before other non-Africans interbred with Neanderthals. So the Zagros mountain farmers had less Neanderthal DNA than the Western Anatolian farmers whose ancestors must have branched off later. The descendants of these early farmers went their separate ways. Whereas the Western Anatolians later migrated to Europe, Reich's team proposes that the ancient farmers of the Levant migrated to East Africa, where living people carry some of their distinct DNA, and the Zagros mountain farmers spread north into the Eurasian steppe and east into South Asia. Did these early people learn farming from each other, or was it invented more than once? Here, opinions differ. Archaeologists have noted that early farmers in different regions used different tools and grains supporting the idea. The genetic and archaeological evidence suggests at least two separate pathways to agriculture at distal ends of the Fertile Crescent, eventually merging into a unified package that then spreads outwards. But these groups traded obsidian, suggesting to Renfrew and Harvard archaeologist Ofer Bar Yosef that seeds and farming knowledge could have been shared too, because new kinds of food preparation tools first appeared in the Levant. Bar Yosef thinks farming sprouted here. Zagros foothills people adopted agriculture from the Levant. Another researcher suggests that farming was such an advantage that it spread both as an idea and by migration of people. Initially, agriculture was an idea that spread, he proposes. Then, when it reaches the borders of Europe, it becomes people spreading farming. We have an extremely complex agricultural revolution that was created by people who were extremely diverse. Sumer. Sumerian farmers grew cereals, barley, and wheat, starting to live in villages from about 8000 BC. Given the low rainfall of the region, agriculture relied on the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Irrigation canals leading from the rivers permitted the growth of cereals in large enough quantities to support cities. Ancient Egypt farmers. Egyptians were among the first peoples to practice agriculture on a large scale, starting in the pre-dynastic period from the end of the Paleolithic into the Neolithic between around 10,000 and 4000 BC. This was made possible with the development of basin irrigation. Their staple food crops were grains such as wheat and barley, alongside industrial crops such as flax and papyrus. Indus Valley. Jujube was domesticated in the Indian subcontinent by 9000 BC. Barley and wheat cultivation, along with the domestication of cattle, primarily sheep and goats, followed in Megru culture by 8000 to 6000 BC. This period also saw the first domestication of the elephant. Ancient Greece and the Hellenistic world. The major cereal crops of the ancient Mediterranean region were wheat, emmer, and barley, while common vegetables include peas, beans, fava, and olives. Dairy products mainly come from sheep and goats, and meat, which was consumed on rare occasions for most people, usually consisted of pork, beef, and lamb. Additionally, what's less well known is that humans are by no means the first species to figure out some way to cultivate plants and animals, or, as we'll get into in a minute, other organisms for their benefit. New research led by researchers from prestigious universities James Cook University and Ohio University have discovered the earliest known example of agriculture, and it was conducted by the humble, often hated termite. Termites of the genus Macroterms, which include some of the largest termites in the world and are found today in Africa and Southeast Asia, are known to have a very strange relationship with a certain fungus known as Termitomyces. These termites build gigantic mounds housing thousands of individual termites and are often found with huge crops of these mushrooms growing on top of the mounds. The mushrooms, by the way, are not only edible by humans but actually prized as a delicacy. Starting in the 1950s, scientists began looking into the relationship between the termites and the fungus and found that the termites engage wholly in intentional, thoughtful cultivation of their crop. When a young queen first births some workers, the first thing workers do is head out into the wild to collect fungus spores. The worker termites eat and only partially digest some plant matter before popping it out into the chosen garden area as basically potting soil. The mushrooms grow rapidly and hugely, sometimes up to a meter in diameter. It's a strange symbiotic relationship. The mushrooms consume the partially digested plant matter and convert it into sugars, which the termites eat. In fact, the termites need the fungus much like humans today need our farms. The fungus provides water and nutrients in the often harsh and arid environments in which termites live. The new research dates some examples of fungus gardening in termite mounds more precisely than ever before, 25 million years ago, and past research has indicated that fungus farming is fully stable and sustainable. There you have it all, guys. Thank you for staying until the end of this video. And that doesn't end the discussion. You can move to the comment section to air your thoughts about the video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and above all, you need to smash that notification bell to get notified whenever we release a new video.